I've been projecting archival film at the Campus Theater since the fall of 2013. Some of my favorite films and memories are from some of the Technicolor films that we would show, which is a very special type of print. And when we talk about Technicolor, an easy way to make a reference to that is many of the musicals, almost really all of the musicals, and the majority of the westerns, color westerns, out of the 50s and 60s were filmed through the Technicolor process. And I've had the opportunity to show some of those original Technicolor prints here in this theater, and it's quite an experience to see those colors, what I always like to say, colors painted on the screen. Hello, my name's Andy. I'm the projectionist and technical director here at the Campus Theater. You are in the projection booth of the Campus Theater, opened in January of 1941. Slightly renovated at the technological level and probably restored at more of the aesthetic level. Some things were just kept in here because of their historical significance, but because of the changing in technology and cinema exhibition, it was required that we do some pretty serious upgrades. And that's kind of the purpose of this video, is to talk about some of the essential exhibition tools that we have here in our booth, but also some things that make the Campus Theater very unique to our area and really to our region. To be considered an archival projection booth and to really get the allowances and the trust of archives, you have to put some things into place. Your booth has to be of certain standards of cleanliness. You have to be able to exhibit skill in film inspection. Every film that comes in must be inspected, and be able to identify wear and any kind of what you would call damage to the film. Sometimes that damage is just light abrasions. Some of them are deep scratches, splices, things like that. You have to have the tools and the bench and the training and the experience to identify those things. So you're able to communicate this back to the archives through an inspection report. And of course, you have to have the projectors, high quality projectors that are safe for the film. And so that requires a financial and in terms of training. Whereas standard booths in the past weren't always that protective of the film. Truth be told, in their defense, it wasn't always a case where all film was considered film that needed to be preserved or needed to be protective or needed to be considered archival, because film was readily available and the studios continually just printed new copies as they were needed. We don't have that luxury today in 2023. Historically, the Campus Theater has, for special events, run numerous archival films. I remember there was a special restoration print of The Touch of Evil, and there was also a Charlie Chaplin series that had borrowed prints from the Library of Congress. But the archival program, as we know it today, was really put into place in the fall of 2013. We've borrowed prints from various archives around the United States, particularly the George Eastman House, UCLA Film and Television Archives, Library of Congress again, Academy Film Services, and numerous archives located not just in the United States, but we've borrowed prints from archives in London, Japan, Paris, different places around the world. So that all began in the fall of 2013. Bucknell University, through the Bucknell Film and Media Studies Department and the provost, had 2 Kineton PF50s installed here in the Campus Theater's booth. And that replaced the old system that had been around for decades. And this system now consisted of 2 Kineton projectors that allowed us to do reel-to-reel projection. And it eliminated the system that had been put in the theater probably around the early 80s of a platter system. 1 projector, 1 platter system, where you have all of the reels basically tied together in one large loop. As reel 1 gets to a close, I will find cues that are presented in the frame of the film, in the final frames of each reel. So the first cue that comes in that I'll see on the screen in the upper right hand corner is the changeover cue. That changeover cue, I start this motor. Starts to flow through it. When I see that approximately 7 seconds later, I'm going to see the changeover cue and hit that cue. And that automatically switches the mechanism, the dowser light from projector 1 over to projector 2. In theory, the transition is so smooth, the viewer doesn't notice it, but really unless they're looking for it. When you go back to a reel-to-reel system, you are basically creating a much safer environment for the film. And we've been having a steady program of archival film since then, largely through the film screenings of the Bucknell Film and Media Studies Department. And we're very fortunate to be able to have these brought in and have the facilities to run those films and to really show not just for their historical value or just their educational value, although those two things are extremely important. There's also an aesthetic value involved, which is you're really watching the film in the medium in which the filmmaker had intended. And sometimes those intentions are very clear to the audience, and sometimes they are not. The intention might be a little bit more subtle, and it might require a little bit more discussion why it needs to be shown in its original format, which for many films is, of course, 35mm. It's a really incredible experience that digital at this point has not yet been able to recreate completely. Will digital get there? Most likely. But for now, we still enjoy the privilege to show these archival films in the medium in which the filmmaker had intended.